I'm an English professor, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I know almost nothing about book awards, so we are here today to remedy that. So I know of the Nobel Prize, obviously, the Booker, the Pulitzer, and then like beyond that, it gets a little fuzzy. So I decided to fix that, and I'm going to share my findings with you in case you're in the same boat. Now, of course, I have certainly read books that have been nominated for these awards, including winning books, but not because they were nominated for these awards. I didn't seek them out because of that. Though I will admit that probably they ended up on my radar in the first place because they had received that kind of critical recognition. Now, in my research, I found that these awards tend to fall into a few broad categories. So that includes awards for an author's entire body of work, awards for literary fiction, and then there's children's literature and YA literature, and then awards that are devoted to like particular genres. So that's how I'm going to be dividing up this video. And then stick around to the end because at the end I'm going to share a few like niche awards and fun facts also that I discovered during my research. But first I want to share a little bit about the process that I underwent to come up with my own list. So I started just by Googling book awards and I reviewed every single relevant web page in the first like 4 pages of hits on Google. And then I made a list of like every single book award that was mentioned on other lists. And I noted how many times each one was mentioned. And then I kind of like ordered them on my Word document from like most number of times mentioned to least number of times mentioned. I absolutely recognize that this is a highly unscientific way to assess, prestige or even like popularity, but this is like a layman's guide to book awards after all, so we're just gonna go with it. Then I cross-checked my list with the Wikipedia list of book awards, which is pretty comprehensive. I will link that page below, and it categorizes the awards by international, by language, by region, by country, by genre, by identity even. So that's a really useful list to take a look at if you want like a much more comprehensive list. But I'm just going to provide an overview of the more major awards. Then finally, I visited the official website of each of the awards that I ended up with on my final list in order to gather the key facts that I'm going to share with you guys about them. So I will also post the link to each official website for the awards that we'll be discussing today in the description down below. All right, I hope that you will excuse the use of the laptop here and my need to take a look at my screen often throughout this video because I'm going to be sharing a lot of like very specific facts here. So we're going to begin with the awards for an author's entire body of work. And of course, we are starting with the Nobel Prize for Literature. Now, of course, we know there are Nobel Prizes for different sciences as well, but the Nobel Prize for Literature was established in 1901, and it was awarded and continues to be awarded in honor of Alfred Nobel. This is a Swedish scientist who technically invented dynamite. He was also a lover of literature and writing, and in his will specifically, he stated that his entire remaining estate should be used to endow, quote, prizes to those who during the preceding year have conferred the greatest benefit to humankind. So, as I said, Nobel Prizes are awarded both to scientists in varying fields and to literature as well. So I'm also going to be sharing for each of these the most recent winner of said prize. So for the Nobel Prize, I am so sorry if I mispronounce this, but it looks to me like Laszlo Krasznahorkai, I think. Something like that. In any case, it's Hungarian, and Hungarian is just like a very difficult language to me. But that's the current winner. The previous year's winner was Han Kang of South Korea, who wrote The Vegetarian, and I did read that work, but I have not read anything by the current recipient. Okay, so the next award begins with a word that I'm also going to find it very difficult to pronounce. I'm going to actually Google this one. Okay, it's the Neustadt International Prize for Literature, so it's a German word, but it was inaugurated in 1969, and it's awarded actually in alternating years with the Neustadt Prize for Children's and Young Adult Literature. from my understanding, or at least according to their own website, it's often referred to as the American Nobel. So this one is open to poets and playwrights, not just novelists. So that's one of the other things that kind of distinguishes it from the Nobel Prize. And the most recent winner is Ibrahim Nasrallah, born in Jordan to Palestinian parents. So those are the only two awards for the body of work that I will be sharing today. So we're now going to move on to the literary fiction awards, which are some of the most well-known, starting with the Booker Prize. So this one also began in 1969 to, quote, stimulate the reading and discussion of contemporary fiction. The Booker is for English language fiction, and there's always a lot of excitement when they announce their long list, which is usually 13 books from my understanding, and then when they announce their short list before announcing the actual winner. A lot of people that I follow on BookTube will make it a point to read all of the books on either the long list or the short list before the winner is announced. Also, there's an international Booker Prize, which is translated works that are published in the UK or Ireland. And then starting in 2027, there's going to be a children's Booker Prize, and the judging panel is going to be composed of 3 adults and 3 children. So this is super exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that pans out. The most recent winner for the Booker Prize was the novel Flesh by David Szalay, Szalay, British Hungarian, again with a Hungarian. So in any case, I can certainly pronounce Flesh, and I've heard quite a few people talking about that novel, but I have not myself read it. All right, next up, we have got the Pulitzer Prize. So this one was inaugurated in 1917. I have always thought of journalism when I hear the word Pulitzer, and certainly it awards a lot of things to different elements of journalism. And they do, of course, also award literature. So this one was founded by Joseph Pulitzer, once again, Hungarian American. He was a newspaper publisher. And it started with just 4 awards in journalism, and then 4 in books and drama, and 1 in education. But since, and I'm going to quote here, the Pulitzer Prize board has increased the number of awards to 23 and introduced poetry, music, photography, memoir, and audio journalism as subjects, while adhering to the spirit of the founders' will and its intent. So for literature, this would include fiction, drama, history, biography, memoir, or autobiography, poetry, and general nonfiction. So there's quite a few different categories of awards for the Pulitzer. I'm, for most of these, just going to be sharing the primary fiction award or the novel award, because if I were to share every single one of the new recipients, we would be here forever. But for fiction, we've got Angel Down by Daniel Kraus. And I read the description a little bit, and this is a World War I novel structured as one single run-on sentence. I have not read it. I feel like I would either love or hate that. So now I'm really curious to see if I would enjoy that book. All right, next up, we've got the National Book Awards. So this one was established in 1950 to celebrate the best writing in the United States. So this is an American award. And as of 1989, this has been overseen by the National Book Foundation. And, quote, it honors the best fiction, nonfiction, poetry, translated literature, and young people's literature published each year. So basically 5 prizes a year. And then also the judges are quite a few people. It's 25 writers, translators, critics, librarians, and booksellers. So despite being US-based, I did find that there were a lot of authors with international backgrounds that have been awarded, at least in recent years. So recently there's been an Iranian, somebody from Guam, which is a territory of the US, but it's still, quite far removed geographically. There's a Lebanese author, plus the translated works, of course, that also can be awarded. The most recent winner for fiction was The True Story of Raja the Gullible by Rabi Alamedine. Sorry, once again, if I'm mispronouncing it. He's a Lebanese author, and I have heard quite a few people talk about this one, and it does sound like one that I would enjoy, so it is on my TBR. So the past year, the winner was James by Percival Everett, which we know has been like a giant sensation. Also have not yet read it, even though I definitely want to. All right, our next one is the National Book Critics Circle Awards. So this one was founded a little bit more recently in 1974 at the Algonquin Hotel in New York City. For those who don't know, this is a really famous old hotel with a long literary history. I was not familiar with the fact that it's associated with this book award, but I did know that it had a big literary history. So in graduate school, I made a little pilgrimage there when I visited New York City, and it has this beautiful bar with like all of the, I don't know if it's oak or mahogany, like beautiful wooden tables and chairs. And it's like a whiskey bar. I had my first ever whiskey drink there, and then I had like a second whiskey drink, and then I roamed around the streets of New York late at night with a friend. We were speaking in like British accents randomly, I think because they were playing My Fair Lady somewhere, like on the road in a park or something as we were walking by it. In any case, it was kind of a magical night. And so it was nice to learn that this particular book award was kind of born in that hotel. This one has more of a focus on literary culture and criticism. So I will quote from the website here. It honors outstanding writing and fosters a national conversation about reading, criticism, and literature. I need a tea break for my voice. One moment. Sorry, I have been teaching all day and my voice is just like shot. Okay, so this one is for books that are published in English and in 6 specific categories. They award fiction, nonfiction, biography, autobiography, poetry, and criticism, which this is the first time I'm seeing something for criticism specifically. Additionally, they have 2 prizes for the best first book in any genre and also the best book of any genre that's translated into English. So there's quite a wide variety there. In addition to that, they have also lifetime awards. So one for an author and one for an institution that's made, quote, transformative contributions to book culture. The institutions that were awarded last year were NPR and PBS. Totally support those awards. I grew up on Sesame Street and like the Reading Rainbow and all kinds of programming on PBS that definitely kind of sparked my love of reading. So the most recent winner for fiction here is We Do Not Part by Han Kang. So this is the same author of The Vegetarian, who was awarded the Nobel Prize recently. So lastly, for literary fiction, we've got the Women's Prize. This one is quite recent. It started in 1996, but it really has become a very famous award. So it's run by the Women's Prize Trust. And this is a charity organization, and it celebrates, obviously, women writers. It awards a female author of any nationality for best original full-length novel that's written in English and that's published in the UK. There is also a Women's Prize for nonfiction included. So from the Wikipedia article here, because I really couldn't find that much information in the About page on their website, so from the Wikipedia article, I've got this. The inspiration for the prize was the Booker Prize of 1991, when none of the 6 shortlisted books was by a woman, despite some 60% of novels published that year being by female authors. A group of women and men working in the industry, this is authors, publishers, agents, booksellers, librarians, and journalists, therefore met to discuss the issue. And then research showed that women's literary achievements were often not acknowledged by the major literary prizes. So I thought that was like an interesting origin story for this award and certainly sounded like it was needed. The most recent winner here is The Correspondent by Virginia Evans, which is like top of the list on my TBR right now. I really, really want to get to that book. I've heard only amazing things. And then for nonfiction, I thought I would add, we've got Finest Hotel in Kabul, A People's History of Afghanistan. And this is by Lise Doucette, or I'm not sure if it's Lise Doucette. Again, apologies for likely mispronunciation. She's a Canadian journalist and a BBC presenter. All right, that covers all of our literary fiction awards that I will be talking about. And we are moving on to children's and young adult, starting with the John Newbery Medal. So I certainly have seen the sort of Newbery Medal sticker on lots of children's books, so I'm familiar with it like super vaguely, but I knew nothing about it. So this one was established in 1921. It's been around quite a while, and at least according to their website, it's the first children's book award in the world. So I've got a little bit of a description here. It was named for 18th century British bookseller John Newbery, and it's awarded annually by the Association for Library Service to Children, which is a division of the American Library Association, to the author of the most distinguished contribution to American literature for children. As per the initial formal agreement, the purpose of the award was as follows. So another quote: to encourage original creative work in the field of books for children, to emphasize to the public that contributions to the literature for children deserve similar recognition to poetry, plays, or novels. So they were also trying to kind of like fill a gap. To give those librarians who make it their life work to serve children's reading interests an opportunity to encourage good writing in this field. The most recent winner for this one is called All the Blues in the Sky, and it's by Renee Watson. The only other one I'm going to be talking about for this particular category is the Michael Prince Award, which is for YA. So this one is very recent. It was founded in the year 2000, and it's also administered by the American Library Association, and then this one is sponsored by Booklist for, quote, a book that exemplifies literary excellence in young adult literature. It is named for a Topeka, Kansas school librarian who was a longtime active member of the Young Adult Library Services Association. So this one accepts fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and also anthologies, which I think is interesting. And in fact, the most recent winner is a YA anthology. It's called Legendary Fry Bread Drive-In Intertribal Stories. I need another pillow. Oh, that's better. Okay, we are now moving on to the genre awards, and we're starting with the Hugo Awards. These are for sci-fi, and they are very, very popular. They have been around since 1952. They're voted on and administered by members of the World Science Fiction Convention, known as Worldcon. And then the nominees can be published anywhere in the world in any language. There's actually 15 categories. There's a whole lot. And that includes Best Editor, which I hadn't seen before. And then there's some interesting quirks about this award that I love. So for starters, the website, the official website, is like an old school, bare bones WordPress site, which is kind of charming considering that this is like the sci-fi award. And then also the award itself is a rocket that is sitting upon a trophy, and then the design of the trophy changes every year. And I had so much fun just like flipping through the pictures. I will probably pause with some music or something to share a few of my favorites with you here. The most recent winner for the fiction novel category is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. Then we've got the Edgar Awards, named for, of course, Edgar Allan Poe, and no surprise, this is for mystery. This was established in 1946. It's judged by volunteer committees of professional writers, and it's given by the Mystery Writers of America. This is based out of New York City. It awards multiple categories as well in fiction and nonfiction, as well as TV, film, and theater. So quite a wide range there. And the most recent winner for this one is called The Big Empty by Robert Crace. Crace? Again, I'm so sorry. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Next, we've got the Nebula Awards, and this is also for sci-fi, but also fantasy. And it was established in 1965. So all of these are like between 40s and 60s. And it's presented by members of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association. This one awards novels, novellas, novelettes, and short stories as well. And it also has a Lifetime Achievement Award that's presented annually. So the most recent winner here was The Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. Have not read this yet, but this one is on my TBR list, so I expect to get to that someday. Now our next one is for horror, and it is called the Bram Stoker Award. I do hear this one mentioned quite a bit even though it didn't show up a lot of times in my, very unscientific Google search. But I do hear people talk about the Bram Stoker Award a lot. It's the highest honor that you can receive in the horror genre. And it was established in 1987, so quite a bit later than the other genre awards so far. It's appropriately named for the writer of Dracula. And these are given for, quote, superior achievement and not best of the year. And the rules are deliberately designed to make ties possible. So that's a little different. This one has 13 categories, quite a lot, plus also a Lifetime Achievement Award. And it is the coolest trophy ever. I really want one. I want to write a horror work of fiction and try to submit it just to see if there is like a 0.002% chance that I could ever have my hands on that trophy. I'm sure there's replicas out there. I might, purchase one for myself, but I will of course show a picture of the marvelous Bram Stoker Award trophy. The most recent winner is once again for work of fiction, for a novel, because I cannot list all of them. We would be here forever. But it's called Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, and it's by Grady Hendrix. So those seem to be the most major awards in genre fiction, although of course there are awards out there for like romance books and westerns, and every genre has awards, but these seem to be the most well known. And then there are some like wonderfully specific awards, like the Mythopoeic Awards. These are for myth and fantasy, and they look for work that best captures the spirit of the Inklings. So I didn't actually know what that was. I had to look it up. The Inklings were an informal literary discussion group associated with J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis at the University of Oxford. So that's a lovely origin story there as well. Okay, so that covers the most critical awards for, your beginner's guide. But I also wanted to introduce you to some kind of lesser known fun facts that I came across in my research. So let's move on to that final chapter of this video. I'm making it sound like, we've got some sort of plot twist coming. We do not. Okay, fun fact, there is an award for the oddest title of the year. It is called the Bookseller/Diagram Prize for Oddest Title of the Year. This has been around since 1978, and the latest winner is called the Pornographic Delicatessen, Mid-Century Montreal's Erotic Art, Media, and Spaces. Actually sounds kind of fascinating. But one of my favorites, as I was just kind of like skimming through them, is called Is Superman Circumcised? The author responded to his win saying, quote, the competition was stiff, but I'm glad I was able to rise to the challenge. And that is it, your rudimentary beginner's guide to the awards that you should know and that I should know. So now we both know them. And perhaps you already knew them, and if you did and you stuck around for this video anyway, then thank you so much for being here. I do want to have some more serious concluding remarks here. After all of that research, I went from knowing basically nothing, not nothing, but close to nothing relative to what I think I should know about a handful of book awards, to realizing that there are awards for almost every conceivable kind of writing that's out there. And I think that's a good thing, but it does make me consider the question of should we really care about them? And in my view, the answer is kind of yes and no. They do bring attention to writing as an art form and to literature as a part of the humanities, which are so, in my view, hugely underfunded and undervalued in society today. And they also bring much more exposure to deserving writers and the often important ideas and current events that they're grappling with in their writing. On the flip side, awards like this, of course, are always going to be to some degree subjective. So there are going to be equally deserving authors that might be overlooked by these awards. And you also have the potential long-term impact of a winning title being kind of overestimated. You might look back 50 years later and think why did this win a Pulitzer, And then on top of that, opinions on what good quality literature even is certainly change over time sometimes and across cultures. But, with the Oscars or the Grammys or whatever more popular awards are out there for other non-book categories, critical opinion and public opinion won't always align, but it's still nice to like have a venue to celebrate the art form. I'm curious to hear from my fellow book readers out there. Do you pay really close attention to these awards? Do they influence your reading choices a lot, a little, or like not at all? Either way, I hope that you've learned a little something along with me here today. As always, thank you so much for watching and happy reading. Bye-bye.